All right, I'm
Okay,
on.
when you're ready.
We're on. Okay. All right. Evening, everybody. Call to order 6:05. Looks like no. So don't worry about the sign. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ready for roll call.
Dr. Breckenridge-Pettit is not here. Dr. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Hobbs?
Here.
Mrs. Maddox?
Here.
Mrs. Pascal?
Here.
Ms. Schuchman?
Here.
And Mr. Smith?
Here. Moving into board member comments. Any board members with comments they'd like to share?
I just wanted to thank all of our amazing principals and assistant superintendent and David and staff and teachers for all the personal development and facilities and being in your classrooms in the summer, getting it all set up for kids. Pretty awesome. So thanks everyone for your summer work.
And I was just going to say, Jen and I went to the EDC state demographer discussion that the EDC hosted. And unfortunately, I haven't gotten the slide deck yet. So it's kind of hard to talk and give much detail without that. So once we get that, we can have further discussion and pass it out to everybody. But it was very helpful, very interesting. I think the good news is looking at Chaffey County, she said we're one of the few counties in the state that's recovered seemingly fully from COVID. And growth is more steady than in the rest of the state, but not looking at a huge amount of growth in school-aged kids actually over the next 10 years. The biggest growth group is retirement. So I'll let you know when we have the slides.
Okay.
So last night they had the physical night, which I thought went really well. A couple hiccups. There was a lot of people, and it was consistent flow instead of an ebb and flow this year. Well over 200 students, athletes came in and participated. Their families came in. Just want to say thank you to all the doctors, the OT, PT, nurses, and other individuals, staff included, to give this to the kids because it's such a great opportunity for them. It's very well done and focused in looking at the kids, like they listen to them, and the parents don't have to be next to them to say, okay, you need to check this out. They're like, okay, what's going on with you? How do you need, let's look at everything. So I was very impressed in how that all went out. And for the price, I thought it was really great. So huge thanks to Eddie and all the staff, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody. It's always it's been a while since I've signed my school family, so good to see you all, and thank you for all you did to prepare for Monday and Friday, I guess, coming fast. So tomorrow, my goodness, see? So good to see you guys all. Happy you're here with us, and so we'll move into the meeting. Written messages of the board, I don't remember seeing any. Public comments, we had in there kind of that state demographer presentation. Maybe not.
No.
I don't know. Was anybody else able to attend that? So hopefully we can get some more info from that once we get some slide decks. So
we should be able to handle on the board retreat on the 19th. I should be able to have something for you.
Beautiful. That'll be great. So looking for a motion to approve the agenda with the following changes. Table 3EI, KF-E-1 Facilities Use Agreement moved to September. Table 5AI, second reading of ADF, moved to September. Table 3E, II, KEC-E, public concerns / complaints about institutional resources, moved to September. And remove all items associated with 5.2, the CASB special policy updates from 5/5/2023.
I'll second.
Any questions or clarifiers?
All right. Ready for a vote to approve the agenda, Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs?
Aye.
Mrs. Maddox?
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal?
Aye.
Ms. Strickman?
Aye.
And Mr. Smith?
All right. Okay, moving right along. There's no guest reports tonight. Campus reports. Thank you all. I was loved reading them, getting an update and seeing where things are at. Any questions or comments for principals, managers?
Say thank you for coming back. And welcome, Teresa, in your new role.
Okay. David, Will, who's taking the district report?
I'll start and then I'll let Will follow up with that piece. I've got to say, over the last few years, it's really exciting. We've really been pushed last year to try and make everything back in a proactive thing where it was systems were driving themselves, and it really seems like we got the vast majority of those systems back online. We've got great teachers. Been hanging out with the new teachers the last 2 days that we hired, and we've been able to fill all our positions. So we're in a good space. I think we have one position we're still looking for at the Early Childhood Center. Will can speak about that more briefly, but we've done a great job on hiring. We have great staff, and I think that's the most important thing from my perspective. We've been able to add that mentoring program, and I mentioned that in one of my updates. That new grant allows us to really increase our support of new teachers, either new to the district or new to the profession, because we know that there's a shortage of people wanting to teach right now. And so we want to make sure that those who do choose to teach in Salida have a great experience. Same thing with the AmeriCorps workers. I've taken over that, trying to make sure those individuals who are volunteering in a way, service membership, have a great experience while here in Salida so that we can stick it out. So we've really been working on support for those individuals. I didn't know if there's any questions people had, because in a lot of ways, tomorrow the teachers come back and we're ready. And I haven't said that in quite a few years since COVID hit. I feel great about where we're at, and I feel great about the staff that we have. And so it doesn't feel like we're in crisis or trying to respond to something. We can actually be proactive and focus on our children and our students. Questions at all for myself? Or anything you would like to know more from Will? You got a good long report from Will.
I heard rumors, rumblings of struggling to find extracurricular coaches, things of that nature. Have those kind of all settled in to some extent? I know they usually start this week.
We're
So.
still down, I think, swing coach.
Mhm.
Girls basketball is still. We've got an announcement. I know that announcement should have gone out. That was still, he's still a couple of his assistants. We had a late resignation at the high school as of yesterday for a teacher position, and Mr. Holmes is legal team filled that today.
Oh, wow.
The previous applicant that we had. So, David's appointment, Teresa has one position, we've got our tech director, Billy, Sean and these guys, much as everything is 100% done. It's much of a it's here, just like that. 3 hours ago, we were trying to get AC within there. Of course, when the meeting starts, it's not working. That's okay. If there's any other specific questions, I'm trying to come into the room from the handbook in there, a little bit about test scores that are in Barwood. A number of things from Marco, and the only thing Evelyn, she got in food with, she didn't put in, she just did last week in the bus rodeo for drivers out at the facility. It's 5 or 6 other districts, send their buses and their drivers. They work with the CBAT folks on how to drive a multi-axle, multi-wheel bus on the back. It's some training, it's some PB, it's a real friendly competition. And it seems to be a huge hit. It's big enough now they're going to have to move to the third rounds next year because there's so many districts and so many buses. So we get a chance to talk to them. It's kind of, it sounds silly, but it's a super important piece of transportation is having well-trained drivers and how to operate that large.
One of the more specific questions I had, in a general, you don't have to go to like each line item, but like we had a lot of capital projects. Like updates, do we come in below, at budget, things of that nature.
That will be in the next month's report. I don't have all of the numbers in because we don't have all of the invoices in. It's going to be right on. About where we were. There's a few things. Fuel came in a little bit lower. A couple of things came just a little bit higher because of some unforeseen things. The fences are going in the quarries. The roofs have been done, and both of the modulars that needed to be done. The bathrooms at the middle school are almost done. A huge project from the tile to the stalls. And they won't have that really down. What was budgeted and what was actually spent.
I was just going to add, since you asked about the coaches, I know Mark already had like the coaches meeting last week. Got all the coaches together, went over coaching philosophy, things like that. So I appreciate that, and then also your work on the handbook. I didn't get a chance to look through it, but it's nice to see like things being streamlined and expectations being set and things like that.
Hopefully,
Thanks for doing all of
as an electronic document, we can add to the
Great.
to it without it being.
The only other things that I would add is we did have a collaborative bargaining team meeting quickly last night to set the meeting dates for this fall. Get a meeting time set up before September 1st so that they can make sure they get some feedback to you guys on which policies they think should be included, because you guys gave them some feedback in June, so they've got that scheduled, and so they're trying to stay dutiful to their kind of job duties and those things and expectations. So I think that's been a positive start to the year, and kind of identifying a smaller team as people are kind of retiring. It's allowing us to go down to that new policy of a little more streamlined, efficient team. So I think that's a positive start to the year already. And then we had a large major training for the second time last Friday with all of our front office staff, allowing everyone to have time to ask questions about how do I respond in this situation? How do I respond in this situation? Practice those things and talk through his building site teams, making sure all their go kits, their bags are ready in case they have to go. And also making sure that they've had time to prepare what is called a reunification drill. And so we locked down some of those dates. I'll be sending out information next week. But in all of the pieces and parts of an emergency, once the crisis is over, we've got to put the student A with the correct parent or the correct emergency contact. And that's the part of the operation that we are directly responsible for. Pre-pandemic, we used to do that. I know some of you weren't in town at that time, where we would practice. And so we will be running those drills here in the opening weeks of schools. So what that means is each site, I'll take Longfellow because it'll be the first one on 8/30, so August 30th. They'll do an early release of first, second, third, and fourth grade. They chose to do the kindergartners. So those kids in that building will be sent home early through buses and whatever way necessary. And then the staff for the next 2 hours will work with connecting each kindergartner with each kindergarten parent. And so parents do have to participate in this process. And there's a lot of coordination here. If you can imagine, we'll just take Longfellow. We really had a crisis where we have to reunify each and every student, right? Line up 460 cars in 7th Street, right? Just you start to think about the logistics that we have to practice and go, oh, we didn't think about that. And the last time we did this drill, a lot of our staff weren't employed by us. So we have a whole new set of staff. So it gives an opportunity at each building for them to go through that practice and operate the way they think it should go, and then find out, oh, it didn't go the way we thought, as well as to begin to train parents, because that's one of our key things is to help parents actually stay away if we have a crisis. So first responders can focus on the crisis at the schools. We don't need hundreds of parents to show up and help. That actually detracts our first responders' efforts and everyone else. And so it's starting to practice those things again that we did pre-pandemic. Yep.
So is this a situation where if the parent cannot make this happen, do you call the emergency contacts?
We will be calling emergency contacts. And like if you're at the elementary school, this is what they do every day, right? They have a couple kids every day who families are struggling to find pickup. Or if you go down to the early childhood center, it's their daily operation every day is to connect Susie with Susie's mom, making sure that's perfectly handed off in that sense. So there'll be some logistics, and I'm sure some people will feel a little inconvenienced, but I think it's important that our whole community has had a chance to think through that. And emergency contacts is one of those hard issues. For instance, as the third largest employer, that means many of the kids, the employees are stuck taking care of school, right? They don't have the freedom to go pick up their children. There's a lot of surprising logistics in these things. So it gives us a chance to think about that. And I'm excited to get back to those details that maybe aren't as stressful, but important.
I believe you should like to know.
Sure. Yep. August 22nd, 7 o'clock. We have a parent training night or a parent Q&A night. So we have the police chief and the fire chief and the different first responders there. And that gives an opportunity for parents to come in and ask questions about security and some of the anxieties that people have, and to get the answers to their questions about what is our standard response protocol, right? We have a standard response, and then we have to lay that into the context of whatever appears and try and make the situation as it appears best lay in with what we think would be our response. Give parents all the answers and let them ask questions of first responders in the school, and then also try and help them see what parenting support they might need and start to identify that and offer more parenting support this year. So that's August 22nd, August 22nd at 7 o'clock, Salida High School auditorium, and all of you would be welcome to attend so you can hear what parent questions are, as well as what first responders and school responses are to those things.
Okay. Nothing else? Okay. That awkward part of the meeting where you guys can stay, but thanks for sharing your time with us. If you want to go, have a good night, and best of luck in the next few days as we ramp back up full with staff and our students. So.
And Joe, just one thing while they're stepping out, just a reminder, we do have our opening staff meeting tomorrow morning at the high school. 7:15 is breakfast, 8 o'clock. We're in the high school auditorium with all staff. If any board member wants to come and say hi, please just let me know, and you're welcome to come and say hi and hear how we start the school year before everyone breaks into their buildings and starts to do more site-specific conversations.
All right, moving into consent agenda, looking for a motion to approve consent agenda. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Matt. Questions, clarifiers, comments?
Staff member brought to me today one thing they found today in the SRO Intergovernmental Agreement, or IGA. There's an address change that needs to occur in section 16. It does not have the right address, so we'll get that changed when we send that over to the city. And then section 25, it does not have the correct dates, so we'll have to get those updated for this year.
I just had a kind of comment / question something to think about. I noticed one of the claims payable was for payout of sick leave for a retired employee, which was a pretty substantial amount of money. It was close to $30,000.
Correct.
That's one, highlights what great benefits we have here at the school district, because most employers do not do that. At CU, we stopped doing that, or they stopped doing that 20 years ago, because it was a huge unfunded liability when I worked there. It was one of the things we looked at. So I don't know if the auditors have looked at it and kind of had a sense of what our outstanding potential liability is on that thing, if we have any understanding of it. But I suspect that's also happening when somebody's working 5 years and maybe it doesn't get flagged because it's not that amount, it's under your spending authority or however that works. But
right. Two things, and I'll let Sheila answer that.
Yeah, it was something I noticed. And
so every year, one of the spreadsheets that I have to prepare for the auditors is compensate absences, and that is one of the journal entries that we have to do as a liability.
Okay.
And it's complicated because of the way that the policy is written. That is, I think this year it was a total of 600,000.
Okay.
Everybody
Right.
tomorrow and we have to pay that. But that is something that goes into the audit.
Okay. Anyway, just something for the board, I think, to pay attention to and be aware of, especially, during financial negotiations and if things are tight. It's, that's an area that's a pretty generous policy, and, hopefully we don't have to go down that road, but it's something I was aware of that I just wanted to say most employers, I don't think, do that anymore, especially sick leave. And I don't know if we break out sick leave and vacation leave, and some employers will give you vacation, but not sick. But anyway, just something for the board to be aware of.
Okay, anything else? Okay, looking for.
All right, Dr. Hill. Mr. Hobbs.
Aye.
Mrs. Maddox.
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal. Ms. Strickman.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye. Okay, moving into discussion items. Number one is financial reporting. David, Sheila, Aaron, turning it over to you guys.
So the spreadsheet that I sent you that looks a lot different than what we have had online for our quarterly financials came to be because when Karen and I went to training with people from CDP, ours showed quarter to date, but it did not show the prior year. So this is the format that they are asking for. They want the prior year and this year, quarter to date, percent of budget. I'm not sure if you have time to look at it and have any questions on that.
So this will be something you start sending us going forward in replace of the green sheet or in addition to?
No, this is your quarterly reporting.
Okay.
This is required on our website. If you might, I don't know if you've looked at the other ones, they're real long, people don't really understand it right away. The ones that we have historically, but if you get any questions from people, we're doing it so that they can just for the other ones that definitely detail expenditures and revenues. This is so you will get that for them. And it is your duty as the board to review this.
Yeah, I think, we all probably been very accustomed to the green sheet. I think we got rid of the colors, so maybe it's not the green sheet anymore. But I think this discussion time is for all of us to, hey, what do we as a board want to start to see from the financial reporting aspect to us? I think there's obviously the component with CDE and the audits and all of that stuff, but what is going to be impactful and influential and helpful for us to make decisions? This is, if the green sheet works for you, great. If there's other things like, obviously this quarterly one or whatever Aaron and Sheila kind of put forward, we can discuss that and kind of just go through of what's helpful for you guys.
Even if your feedback is, we really like the green sheet or the long sheet, and someday if you want to know the history of why it's called the green sheet. But if you like that and it really helps you as a board member stay on point for the questions and things that you want to be able to ask about finances, then that's great. We just want to make sure you guys have a chance to say, we really want this information in this way. It's easier for me to understand. And if what you're getting right now, plus this new one is going to work, great. If just this new one would be great for you, then let us know that.
I like the long sheet. Or maybe until we get accustomed to this, then we can be able to.
Yeah, I was still planning on giving you the long sheet monthly.
This is a little bit.
Some of you had indicated that you like the long sheet. But this is just requirement.
I think one of the pieces in this quarterly report kind of shows it, but we always get stuck on transfers and fund balances. So I think seeing kind of, I know it's going to be repetitive to an extent, but being able to see the balances that we have in those fund balances or the reserves, however you want to clarify those, I think that would be good for us to kind of see and be able to monitor. And then I don't know how the reporting aspect of it would be. But as we get more and more into kind of local share and the cash flow concerns that we could potentially have with when we get money versus paying it out, I just don't know what the mechanism would be, but and I don't know if there's going to be anything that can be us making any decisions differently other than, hey guys, we have to get a loan from wherever to cover payroll this month because we haven't got our property taxes yet. So
This sheet shows you fund balance for each of the funds. So this sheet will show you what we received, because this is the last quarter of our fiscal year. And this is your, until you know, all the adjustments. So this shows you what your fund balance is going to be. Each one of these funds. And you won't get another one of these.
September. So if you get that in October or November, is that
You're probably going to. And then the long sheet is going to show you more of what you're asking about cash flow. So whenever I got my first notification of our state share for fiscal year 23-24, it was about half what I used to get, which was unfavorable cash flow. The other thing that I got was unfortunately taken. Just that's yes, this is just going to show you the total. It's not going to show you individual revenue or individual expense. Spreadsheet, even though your one sheet is approved, it's still not your best. Just stabilization. Tax.
so? I guess I would say, on the long sheet, maybe the reporting stays the same, but hearing from you guys when there is the differences, and then unless I'm looking at the wrong thing, the reserve balances, the fund balances are in here, but not like the high school reserve, all those. So that's always good to know when since we're always in a budget process, it seems to just have that readily available.
And as far as the capital reserve projects for this year, there's quite a few of them that do not have invoices to be yet. I did bring what was done, so it is not indicative of all projects completed that have the invoices, so. But I do everything.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say I definitely agree with you about, because when we were going through all of those items, like the turf and all of the things, right? We were looking at all those cap renewal funds and deciding where to pull money from. So it's nice to be able to track those. I also really liked your narrative report. I thought that was kind of helpful. I don't want to give you a bunch of extra work, but if that was easy for you, it's kind of nice to get, for someone who's not super like numbers, to have a narrative report of just what you thought was important highlights. So I was surprised to see that, and I was like, oh, it's really nice.
To add maybe is a last note then on financial reporting. You have the auditors on site last week of August, so they're all prepped, and Aaron and Sheila, that's where all their focus is for the next few weeks at least. While the auditors are on site pulling everything, they've been really working hard to digitize our records on that side of the house and making sure that we kind of entering 2023, 2024 a little better with digitizing records. And hopefully that transition helps people long term. So, and just, it's gone really well having Aaron in the transition, learning every single person's role. It's been a very helpful thing for us to understand and get a perspective on our business practices. So if there is anything you want changed on any reporting, just let us know.
Okay. Thank you guys. Hopefully we gave you enough guidance. Continue to speak up as we get reports so we can continue to hone this in for not just us, but what's easier, accessible for community members. So, okay, going on to discussion item B then, set retreat agenda. David, are you taking this one?
Sure, I'll take this one. So our main thing, as we've kind of laid it out in our retreat, would be the first thing is look at our roles and responsibilities. It's the most frequent thing we do every single year. And for those who've been on a board before, it may seem redundant, but every single board, if they kind of get shipwrecked, that's where they get shipwrecked. And so we want to start there and make sure everyone understands, and a chance for each of us to talk about how we communicate as a team. Where are we consistent and where are people having the freedom to show up the way they need to. And so that's a key place just to start the conversation, make sure we all understand what our roles and responsibilities are. Then we were going to go through looking at the priorities for the year. In terms of, I got that whole target, I've sent it to you already, or the plate, whatever you want to call it, say, this is how I think strategically we need to focus on these things. It's a chance to go really kind of dig deep. So ahead of time, if there's something like, hey, I really want to dig deep more, and we mentioned like athletics, right? That lets me know I need to bring somebody to the retreat, or I need to make sure I'm ready for that. Otherwise, you're going to get my perspective and from what I've gotten from principals and other inputs to say, here's what I think we need to try and move the needle on inside of our district. For us as a board, I think facilities is where I'm going to be making the big recommendation to try and get some more ribbons and bows around that. So that's a long conversation. That's a couple hours, as deep, much time as we need to talk about all the details of the district that you guys want to say focus on. I think out of that one, I'll just remind you the most important thing from a board is to say what you're going to cross off, right? Because I've got to kind of give you the full list, which is too much. And it gives you guys the chance as the community to say, let's get more focused on this. We're going to let this go into a maintenance mode. Not that somebody wouldn't do it, but we're not trying to improve it. Those are two different efforts, right? And you had it up for just a second ago, right? Sorry.
You're fine.
Right. And so then we'll go into lunch, and then we look at our master facility planning process. And there's a lot of different items on that master facility plan that we need to talk through. So part of that starts with demographics. So we'll try and have Elizabeth Garner's work there just to kind of cross-check our personal local demographic report and get a sense for that. And we can talk about how many kids have come to school and what that might predict for our October count and our small vision, like 1 year growth pattern versus the 10-year growth pattern, and talk about that piece, and then get into each facility leases and what assets we have and where we want to put them. So that's where I see our day being spent. And my question is, and then one other project was to kind of talk, we were looking at maybe doing a policy audit, which would mean we go kind of from our policies A through Z. It seems like this board has an appetite for that. I think since we're not as much in a crisis mode, I think it might be a good year to try and tackle that and see how far we can get. It seems like, so that would be the other project that I think we sent out to you guys, and just wanted to make sure you had a chance to say, hey, I want this on the agenda. Or if that agenda seems to match what you would expect, then we'll get it ready.
Yeah,
Joe?
I think the last piece was the state accreditation. And I don't know if we'll have the test scores available yet or all that.
We're expecting growth scores next week.
So,
Growth scores will, from the CMAS testing, that'll then create our accreditation reports. So they should be ready for the 19th. Well, I can't promise anything.
so I would agree that the kind of, as we've been discussing and found out kind of through the budgeting process, obviously we kind of have we're kind of in a maintenance mode until we need to dig in on the CBT piece and everything else. But, for forward looking, I think facilities plan and what we're doing with our space and new space and needs is kind of going to be the main work of the year. So trying to make sure that we're all somewhat aligned there and kind of starting that planning process for CMC, the HEA remodel. There's probably 10 sub bullets to that. So, but if there's anything else that we feel we want to tackle, let's discuss them now and throw it on there.
I don't have anything
Specific I want to tackle on the policy piece. I would just like to be a little more intentional if we could, rather than a broad sweep of, hey, let's look at everything. Maybe get some input from folks of, what specifically needs to be looked at, so we can at least focus in some way or another. I know one issue that's come up repeatedly is the bullying, and maybe that's an area where we can lean into a little bit more. So yeah, on the policy, rather than just doing a broad sweep, I would prefer to be a little bit more intentional about that, rather than, hey, let's just look at everything.
Okay. And I think what we'll do is discuss how do we want to do that. I think that's what it gives us a chance to do. And what does that look like from broad sweep to being more targeted, those issues. We can also bring some, where we're on that anti-bullying thing, and I can bring some updates on that to the retreat.
I was actually going to say pretty much the same thing, because was it our last board meeting where we talked about SEL and bullying, and kind of we were going to have like a breakdown with subcommittees. So yeah, I think it would be good to get an update on how that committee work is going.
Okay, I will bring an update on that piece and also give you kind of where I think how we could go through the policy and just do an audit of it as well. So I'll do both.
I could see a lot of value. I mean, I don't want to just go over policies to go over them, but I do think we have seen there's a lot of policies that have dates that are like 10 to 15 years old. So even if we don't touch them, to be able to refresh the date that, hey, this board looked at it, no changes were made. So future boards can not be looking at things and be like, nobody's looked at this for 20 years, whatever it may be. So, but I do agree. Let's, make sure it's good use of our time and looking into things and getting references and things like that, which I think we'll discuss Saturday. And I think that's kind of part of the plan. Okay. Anything else? Break a record tonight. All right. All right. We're going to move into action items. Do we have second reading?
We do. They're on the back side of that page.
Okay. There we go. So looking to approve second reading policies. We've struck them all except policies DAC and JRCB. So looking for a motion.
I'll move to approve the agenda. Or action items.
Second read.
Oh, second reading.
I got you.
Sorry, I couldn't find it on my phone yet.
Thanks, Gary.
Looking for a second?
Questions, comments?
Just one staff member brought to me. We went through all the policies that used to say Director of Academic Affairs and changed it to Assistant Superintendent, but we realized in this policy DAC, Federal Fiscal Compliance, the Assistant Superintendent nor the Director of Academic Affairs is the right person. It should be the business manager. So we're going to make that edit that the board designates the business manager as the district contact for all federal programs and funding in that piece.
Makes sense.
I was trying to find it, but I couldn't find it. But in the JRCB one, oh wait, sorry, we're not on that one.
We are.
There was just an error on page 2. It said like report to, and it should have said superintendent, and it just was like report to period.
Okay, we'll get that error fixed.
It was right where the second sentence had assistant superintendent in red.
Okay, we'll get that one fixed. Thank you. So when they come to third reading, both of those should be addressed.
Okay. If nothing else, ready for a vote?
Dr. Hill. Mr. Hobbs. Mrs. Maddox.
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal. Ms. Schickman.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye. Okay, moving to approve ECC Quality Improvement Plan. Looking for a motion. Okay. Any questions, clarifiers? Beautiful.
All right, calling for a vote. Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs.
Aye.
Mrs. Maddox.
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal.
Aye.
Ms. Schickman.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye. Okay, looking for a motion to approve HEA construction documents not to exceed $30,000. So moved. Ben?
Second? Somebody second?
Yep, we've got.
That one over there. Okay, David, you want to touch on this one real quick?
Yeah, I apologize for the late submission, but hopefully this is going as you would expect it to go. So all you're doing is small baby steps, so we don't overcommit money or overcommit ourselves. This allows us to look at this facility and say, what would it cost to get what we want done? And in order to do that, you got to answer questions like HVAC. It came up this week. Just another one that's popped up is the well that this site is on. The state governance over that is looking for some significant changes, and again would like us to get us annexed and connected to city water. That'll be part of what we talk about on the 19th. So again, all those different questions, trying to get the answers so that you could send the construction documents out and say, how much would it cost to do this? Right now, we just have too many variables. So this gets us set up with the regulations and really doing a deep dive and making sure we're set up with fire and safety and all the different permitting regulations. That's what this would have us do.
We've never really went through a deep dive. I mean, we kind of got a sketch and here's a rough plan, but I mean, that was pre-COVID and the numbers have probably exploded and not through the state and everything else.
In terms of costs,
Right.
they actually, DSI is not expecting a significant change in the original cost structures. I find that harder to believe. So that's why I'm kind of like, let's wait and see so that we can bring to the board and the community a number that's like, here's the true cost of the project, not to exceed, because we know exactly what we're asking for in that piece.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was my question. Is I knew I had seen some sketches and things before, and when this building was originally bought, the intention was always to include GA.
Yes.
Right? So, yeah, what work have we done? Is this going to be duplicating work that we?
It will not. It stacks on. It's the same team, just moving forward with DSI and DLR, and then our local people to try and answer the questions of. It's great to say, here's the box, and you want to cut the box up into these other squares, and that's where we have those drawings all set. Exactly what do you want? A question, for example, that could come up is, do you want a heat and serve kitchen? If you want a heat and serve kitchen to take care of the 100 and some kids here, okay, what kind of heat and serve kitchen, and let's really find out what is underneath the ground in order to support that in terms of infrastructure, water pipes, sewer, oil, not oil traps, but what are they called? Grease traps. Thank you. Those are the kind of questions where they were roughed in, and we want to make sure they're not roughed in when we say, here's how much it'll cost, and then we get a lot of big surprises.
Water sprinklers and HVAC and all those. I don't think we're ever really considered other than just like.
So I'll be
standard.
bringing in drawings and some update stuff on the 19th, and just also we'll be talking about water to this building because the state regulatory over our well is pushing hard on us to get annexed, but that's cooked into the fire station that's being built beside us in Oak Street construction, and whether there's a water pipe to tap into. So there's a lot of layers in that. I will be meeting with the city, new city attorney, or not attorney, but the administrator on Friday. So we'll be having some more of those conversations, trying to get everything in sync.
Okay. No other questions? We'll go for a vote.
All right, Dr. Hill. Mr. Hobbs. Mrs. Maddox. Mrs. Pascal. Ms. Schickman. And Mr. Smith.
All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Let's move into board communications committee reports. Matt, is there anything more on CBT?
No, I mean, I think we can take this off there as a board reports. It's, board,
Okay. Yeah, I think we'll continue to have some sort of update from you or David, but
yeah,
I'm fine with that.
maybe somewhere else. But, yeah, it popped up on my calendar that I might have it yesterday. And I called David. Over and I realized
Okay. I'm sure, especially as we go through things, we will have plenty of discussion and action items on this. So I think we're moving that kind of from an ongoing
Key
report.
thing is I think we have good momentum. People are digging into hard conversations, but I think everyone's showing up to work in a positive way. So I think we'll find a lot of success this year.
Okay. Mandy, anything with BOCES coming up for the summer?
No, I mean, we haven't met over the summer. The next meeting is September 13th. Susan Greenberg, the new director, is helping on the mail, and she's sending out emails and updates. So,
Anything on your radar of BOCES issue we may run into this year? Or?
No, I don't think so. I think we'll continue to evaluate whether the alternative licensure program is the best we can do for our staff. We have 3 right now that'll be in the alternative licensure program through BOCES. So it's definitely a program that we use to keep our classrooms with good people. We want to make sure those people are getting, if they're coming from like being an engineer to a classroom teacher, there's a lot of training there to do that well. So we want to make sure that program's kind of high quality. And so the BOCES is investing time and energy in to answer that question. So I'm eager to see where it goes this year.
From a facilities update, I don't really have anything. We're going to have a deep dive discussion in a couple weeks roughly. So move on to there. Communications, Jen, Matt, still on that. Kim?
Well, and we discussed a little bit. I'd like to kind of create a little bit more structure there this year. And it's kind of up to you guys if you want to both continue as I build that structure in a little bit. If not, just let me know and we can look for other volunteers.
And I think we have election season, pre-voting, nominate, whatever, officers, subcommittees, all those things. I think, we could do now, or we could kind of wait until November, December timeframe as well. So if you're thinking of having a passion for something you want to move, speak eventually. Okay. Jen, anything with CASB?
Regional meeting is happening in a few weeks, so I'll go to Fairplay. I just asked David if there's anything I need to bring to that. Fall conference and delegate assembly. I'm not sure. I thought that was the most worthwhile use of time, energy, and funds, but maybe if someone else would like to go test that out, it's October 6th and 7th in Glenwood. And David, do you have anything on CASB like you and Jody want to talk about?
Not at this place,
okay,
right? No, no, not here in this space.
I don't want to pause.
No, but the only thing Jody and I, she put in an offer to teach one of the sessions at the CASB conference in the winter. And so we are going to be presenting at the CASB conference. And so that's exciting to be presenting again in that conference space.
We'll be sure to send a few hecklers in.
So Joe's not allowed. And just make sure if you can't make that, you're telling Brett now or Kim now. Otherwise, we are assuming everyone is coming to that conference. We do have a good chance to get you into a Broadmoor room, which I know makes it more interesting to bring your whole family, which makes it a much easier task to come.
I'll let you know.
Well, and that's to that.
That's
point.
why we're probably going to get everyone a
My
room
plan
under the
is everyone
assumption.
will get a room and make changes.
I'm getting a room.
Yeah.
We don't need to answer this now, but students.
We are trying to get 2 students to come to the student strand. Jesse was working on that, so we'll see how that goes. We'll be looking for 2 juniors normally as they ask. Normally at a student council or some leadership aspect, some kid who's got an interest in that.
Kim, election update.
It's nearly time. Tomorrow, petitions are available for folks who are interested in running. You can pick those up. I need to confirm some things because we have staff returning in the morning. I think I have to stay here to be available to hand out petitions. So 8 o'clock for those of you who know you are running. Anyone else out there in YouTube land? 8 o'clock tomorrow, petitions can be picked up. And that's kind of the bulk of it. If anyone has any questions about any of that, let me know. Otherwise, everything else is on track. Petitions are due back, I think, September 1st, and I'll confirm that before I put them in your hands, but I think that's the deadline.
We always recommend that you get more signatures, anybody who's have an interest, because some are not validated. So get more signatures than the minimum. It's always frustrating for anybody who ever tries and then comes up and realizes there's a double address or something else. It doesn't let it be counted.
Yep. And I'm happy whoever picks up a petition will go through all those details and some other important things like making sure you're a resident for at least 12 months and valid registered voters, signatures, and some of those things. So we'll go over all that for folks as they pick it up.
Okay. Future business topics for future meetings. We discussed pretty good with the retreat. I don't know if there's anything else that with the bullying and SEL and some of the subcommittee reports. Don't know if we'll need anything else on that one. Doesn't look like it. Calendar of events. The September meetings, September 12th. here at the Crest Academy. Who would like to do agenda review the week before? All right, Carrie, you're in. We will schedule that as we get closer. As we said, the August 19th retreat. Ben, thank you for the offer, but I think we want to do it here. It makes David and Kim's life a lot easier. So we will plan to do that here at Oak Street from 8 to 4, with Kim taking care of all the food needs. So we're all set there. Public listing session. I think the time frame between getting school started and the retreat was a little tricky. So we were talking about trying to do this post-retreat with kind of our strategic plans kind of laid out. Don't know if we have a preference before or after the September meeting, but kind of looking at dates in September, if anybody has any thoughts. Otherwise, we'll just have Kim work with Bunny and Clyde's or somebody to be able to accommodate us. I think we talked about just doing one meeting instead of the two in the downtown area and kind of take it from there. But I would suggest pushing it maybe after the September meeting, since it's tight in between there and Labor Day, but certainly after Labor Day. So.
Feel good about that?
Okay, we will follow up as we can get something scheduled. Taking records, looking for adjournment. Thank you, Carrie. Pre 7 o'clock. William's like, wait, what? Thanks, all.
William will probably be with us, and